Hello friends, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Hankey Law. Hankey Law likes solving your problems when they happen, but loves anticipating them so they don't. They provide real people with real solutions to help get your life moving forward. Hankey Law provides criminal defense, family law, personal injury, and civil law. Listen, the legal system can be intimidating and scary. If you find yourself in the legal system, it's important to have lawyers who can explain the process, navigate the legal system, and protect your rights. Hankey Law's experienced attorneys use their knowledge to skillfully defend their clients. Maybe your family is needing representation during a stressful or emotional event. Hankey Law can help. Hankey Law is comprised of Blake and Kelsey Hankey with a family of their own, so you can trust they understand the value of keeping the best interests of you, your finances, your future, and the long-term interests of your children in mind. If you are needing legal help in North Dakota or Minnesota, go to hankeyjustice.com or call 701-746-4529. Hankey Law, counselors and attorneys at law.
Welcome to the Cloud Surfing Podcast.
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. Well, how are you? It's good to finally meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing well. How about you?
You like to stir stuff up on Twitter, and not even intentionally. It just tends to happen, doesn't it?
Whenever you tweet that much, you're bound to piss people off.
It's all right. It's a fun time for me, at least. I like strolling through it to see what's going on. Well, thanks for joining me. Everyone, this is Todd Hagopian. Did I say that right?
Just about. It's Hagopian.
Hagopian. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
He is the chair of the, is it Northeastern Oklahoma?
Yep, basically the Tulsa region of Oklahoma.
Of the Libertarian Party, which is the fastest growing party in American history. So it's really cool to have him on. He's obviously a spokesperson for the party, and in these days it's great to have a third option instead of just constantly needing to pick between the lesser of two evils. So obviously the election has been tense lately. What was your take on election night? Obviously it wasn't as bad as everyone thought it was going to be, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed with how libertarians wound up performing across the board. I think we would have liked to see Joe in the 2 billion or 2% to 3% range rather than the 1.1% range. We had gotten spoiled with the Gary Johnson run of 3+%,
Yeah.
And we knew it wasn't going to be that good just because of the dynamics of the race. But we would have liked her to do a little bit better because we came out of that election limping a little bit from a ballot access standpoint. So we lost ballot access. Every election cycle, we lose some ballot access just because of the ways the rules are written. We have to go out and petition and do XYZ to get ballot access back, but because she fell so far below 5% in some states and 2% in other states, we lost ballot access in a number of states that we were hoping to not have to have that uphill battle. So that was unfortunate.
Do you know?
Go ahead.
Do you know what the laws are in regards for being on the ballot? Do the Democrats, Republicans need to have the same amount of petitioning going on, or are they just automatically on the ballot?
Yeah, it's varies by state, unfortunately, so there's no easy answer to that question, but most of the states have the same requirement for all parties, but the difference is that the requirements are written such that you have to get 2.5% in the presidential election or something like that, right? So Republicans and Democrats are always going to get the 2.5%, and third parties are always going to struggle to get the 2.5%. And Oklahoma has actually loosened up ballot access to where now we just need 2.5% in any state office. So any statewide office, if we get 2.5%, we get ballot access for 4 years, which means basically every other election we have to do it again. You know what I mean? So we locked it up this year.
I think when Justin Amash in the federal Congress, when he left the GOP and went to the Libertarian Party, I mean, you could see a lot more people being like, "Oh, what is this then?"
Yeah, and when he did that, we thought we were going to get a lot more push from that, and unfortunately, I think Trump was just such a polarizing figure in the GOP that when he kind of went and said, Justin Amash is a fake Republican and blah blah blah, and I think that just stopped people from switching over, and then Justin Amash could have done it a little differently too. He left about a year before he actually joined the Libertarian Party. Right. So he's been known as a libertarian for years and years, but for some reason decided to spend about a year as an independent, and basically publicly not going to the Libertarian Party that everyone expected him to go to.
Right.
I think he could have spent that year better, served by being a spokesman for the party, and potentially then would have gotten the presidential nomination that he wanted there at the very end.
What I saw a lot on Twitter was people were almost associating him with Bernie Sanders for taking the independent role instead of taking a party, because he's the only other known independent that we've had in a while. So people are just almost assuming to be an independent you have to be on board with that type of thinking, and that's not true at all. It's whatever you want to think to be an independent, but that's not the way that the American political system lets people think.
Yeah, I think that people view, for right or wrong, people view independents as true spoilers, whereas if you're in a party, you at least believe in a party platform. You know what I mean? Afterwards, they can call libertarians spoilers and whatnot. But I think when you're an independent, a lot of times people are looking at you as doing it for yourself, And I don't think he helped himself or the party in that year. Now, he's done a great job since he's joined the party. I've been extremely happy with, how vocal he's been and the work that he's done to educate the public about what libertarianism is. But I do think that there's two things that could have happened better in the last 4 years. So one, Amash, when he left a year and a half before the election, he could have moved to the Libertarian Party and become a spokesperson for the party. Two, when Gary Johnson got 4 million votes, 3%, 4 million votes, he really should have spent the next 4 years helping the party. And what he really did was disappear. I mean, if he had just set up a webcam in his basement and done 3 podcasts a week, and continued the momentum and handed it off to the next guy, we could have had a strong, he was well known enough that he could have gotten on TV shows for the last 4 years and been seen, but he didn't do that. So,
do you think it might have just been because he wanted to stay nonpartisan, or what do you think his reason was for trying to stay so independent for that year?
Justin Amash, yeah, I think there's probably a couple of things. I mean, he had donors that donated to him as a Republican, right? So it is different to go to an independent and say, listen, I just can't handle this party anymore because of who's running it. That's one thing to say, thank you for all your money and I get elected and now I'm going to jump ship and go to another party. That was probably part of it, right? And then I think he was probably thinking about running for re-election. And he would have been better served, he thinks, by running as an independent for re-election. I think by the time he moved to Libertarian, he had decided against running for re-election in his seat, So there were probably a few things at play. I don't think there was anything, there's nothing nefarious about it. I think there's just things because of the way he got elected. You have to be delicate about jumping ship and looking the wrong way.
I suppose you don't want to screw off the people that made you all the money to get to the position you are in the first place.
Yeah, and they supported him for years. I mean, I was in Michigan when he got elected. So I mean, that was probably 10 years ago now. I'm thinking that he got elected around 2010. I can't remember, but yeah, he's probably been there for 10 years representing those folks and getting donations for 10 years, and they like what he stands for, so he shouldn't feel bad about that. But he was definitely getting donations from Republicans.
Speaking of podcasts, you've got your podcast coming up. It's called Chief Chats, right?
Yes, sir. We've done 3 or 4 episodes now. It's pretty fun. My co-host is Kevin Hobby. He is our former vice chair in Oklahoma. He and I have gotten to know each other really well, and it's kind of fun because he is a left-leaning libertarian and I'm a right-leaning libertarian. So we kind of go at it on different issues, and I have one network of folks, and then my network of folks is more of the high profile names in libertarianism. His network of folks is kind of the people that are actually really connected with the party. And so we're bringing in a good mix of voices.
From both sides,
and
definitely.
Yeah, it's just it's going to be fun, and yeah, so far so good. We've had a lot more listeners than we thought we would, and we're still learning how to do it, but it's fun so far.
No, it's great. Dude, podcasts are awesome. It really is. I mean, look, I get an opportunity to talk to you. I don't think that would have ever happened without a podcast. They're great. And your logo is super cool. I mean, it looks like the Boss Baby.
Yeah, that's what it is. It was funny. I had it all set up probably about a year ago to do a podcast by myself, and I just couldn't get the kick in the ass to do it. And so then Kevin came to me and he goes, "Hey, I want to start a podcast." And I'm like, "Well, here's what I had. It was Boss Baby, and it was going to be, me just talking for 5 minutes about different issues." And we threw him in there and talked about what we wanted to do. And we're going to have kind of a Ladies of Liberty series that talks about ladies in the movement and what we can do better as a movement to recruit more women and keep more women and understand how they're feeling in the movement. We're going to do kind of the big dog segments with the high profile names, and then we're also going to do issue segments where we talk about where this week we're probably going to drop 2. One on the student loan discussion that everyone's having right now, and then another one on the libertarian nomination process that not a whole lot of people understand. Everyone's like, "How the hell did you pick Joe? Why wasn't I involved?" Okay, well, we're going to explain it all for you. So now if you want to get involved in 2024, this is how you do it,
That's a great idea, actually, because I feel like that is a huge... everything you just touched on, actually, I was just taking mental notes. So number one, you talked about keeping women in the movement, because the liberty movement is very male-dominated by far. It's like 90-10, probably in that range. And honestly, it's probably just because... Personally, I believe it's because of the whole gun thing. I think men are more like... Someone puts a picture of like a fully automatic rifle in a like Mama Joe group on Facebook, and the whole group just erupts like yes, and then anyone puts anything else relating to like women's health, and it's like the lowest. No one's talking about it, So I definitely understand. What do you think we can do as a group? Because I mean, personally, I don't affiliate myself with any party. I like to talk to everybody. Everyone's open to me, honestly. I think, but the Liberty Party has caught me at one of those parties that's like they're just filling the gap that everyone's kind of been trying to find. Like, I know Democrats who like guns that have to feel like they have to be at arms with their friends all the time because their friends won't let them like guns or whatever. And then you have Republicans who don't like guns, and it's like, well, now you can't come deer hunting with us. It's like, well, come on. There has to be some middle ground here. And the Liberty movement seems to be like that. You can do whatever you want, man. We're just here to, let gay people have guns with their pot plants, man. That's what we do.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting, and I think as we do more episodes, we'll learn more. But the key learnings of the first 3 episodes are what we think we're hearing is that a lot of women are turned off by how aggressive the arguments are. So it's not necessarily the pro-gun or the pro-this, the pro-that. It is just the aggressiveness of the argument. You know what I mean? So to your point, the howitzer part of the gun argument, the heroin part of the drug argument, the high-level, high-tech Austrian mathematics part of the econ argument,
Right.
And the Fed part of the monetary argument, these like hard, aggressive tactics are turning off a lot of women in the movement, or a lot of women who might be interested in the movement. Now, what you end up with is some amazing, strong women that are in the movement, and that's why every woman who I know in the movement is amazingly strong, and just very, very opinionated and educated and strong on the issues and just as aggressive as I am, but the problem is that's not every woman. And so what they have told us is they know many people who are interested, but get turned off by that pretty quickly. And especially get turned off by that if they happen to be the only women in the room the first time they're hearing it. Right. So they walk in and they're one of 10 people and they're the only woman, and that is the message, and 9 people are rah-rahing it and they're kind of shying away, and it's just a big turn off from that standpoint.
It seems like you're not in the group then.
Exactly. Yeah. So now there's been a lot of good experiences and some bad experiences who have come out so far, but that is one kind of theme that we've heard from each of them, is that the messaging needs to get just a little softer and packaged in a different way, especially in that very first exposure. You know what I mean? So whereas we might get a whole bunch of ANCAPs who have never voted by yelling about howitzers and yelling about heroin and all this stuff, we might get them to come and vote for us. We probably won't get the Republican or Democrat woman who's teetering on the edge by throwing those messages out into the Twitter sphere.
Right. Definitely. I mean, because I feel like almost everybody nowadays is a Democrat or Republican, and you have to persuade them to kind of hop ship into this sailboat instead. And so, yeah, taking a hard line approach, because that's almost the political world entirely right now, is the Democrats have these strict. You can talk to any Democrat and you already know what they're going to say. You can talk to any Republican, you already know what they're going to say. So like hardlining another political party seems like it's just following down that same path again. So to your point, kind of meeting people where they're at instead of being like, no, if you're not on board with any of the Fed, then you can't be with us. Like being a gatekeeper is not a good idea right now.
Say if you're agreeing with any person or political party on every single issue, then you're not applying enough critical thought to the issues. That's what I always like to say, and I think it's so true. But to your point, though, it brings up another point too. Republicans and Democrats are known for certain things, right? So let's talk about that. Republicans are known for being fiscally conservative, good on guns, and tough on spending, right? Are they? Are they actually? No. Okay. They spend like crazy.
This is the most socialist president we've
had. Is one of the worst 2A presidents that we've had, Now, Democrats are known for helping the poor, and not having, peacetime, anti-war and this and that. Are they? No, of course not. They voted for every war. They started a bunch themselves, and they've done almost nothing to help poor people. Right? Everything that they've done is kind of just a badge that looks good, but doesn't actually solve the issue. Now the problem is both of those people, both of those groups have very good marketing. So anybody can say what they think a Democrat or a Republican is, and we don't. The Libertarians don't have good marketing. Nobody can say what a Libertarian is. And part of it is because of what you said, where we allow people to take different positions because we're the party of individual choice. You know what I mean? But part of it's also on us for being terrible, terrible marketers that we need to improve on long term and actually build a brand so that people know what libertarianism stands for.
Right. The libertarian marketing is almost just people making memes. That seems to be the marketing for the party. And do you think do you think it would be like each state is responsible for their own marketing type of solution, or how would you feel that a solution would be implemented for that problem?
Yeah, so I actually ran for Libertarian chair, national chair last year briefly before I pulled out, and that was one of the 3 planks that I ran on was trying to develop a national brand, and it was basically like pick 3 to 5 planks. We've got 30 in the platform. Pick 3 to 5 planks and say this is what a libertarian is. Boom, boom, boom. And if you believe in these 3 things, reduce taxation, end all wars, and criminal justice reform. If those 3 things you're on board with, then come on over. and you can look at the other 27 blanks and you can decide where you stand, but these are the three things that you have to be with. And I think the biggest problem with libertarians is, and I made a tweet earlier, the easiest way to lose a war is to start shooting your own people in the back, or something like that. That's what we do. So then the question is who gets to pick the three, who gets to pick the five, well, I think number 6, you're not a libertarian if you don't agree with this, and it just evolves really quickly, and it's because we are so, I would say, decentralized. The National Party has so very little power over what the state parties do or what the local parties do, and that's a good thing. But still, we need to start working on having national issues. One thing that I'm going to be pushing for the next 2 years before 2022 is I'll be launching a website with Kevin and with a podcast that's called overtaxationistheft.com, and it's going to be all about how libertarians across the country should try to abolish state income tax.
And they should.
Yep, just pick one issue that can work in 41 different states.
Correct.
Because 41 states still have an income tax.
Thankfully,
and we can say the same thing across all of them, and try and get that issue out so that everybody knows that libertarians stand for abolishing the income tax.
And income tax, I believe that a lot of people don't know the history on income tax and why it's there in the first place. And income tax was implemented during the Prohibition to replace the tax that they would have on alcohol sales. And the Prohibition was trying to go for quite a while before the Supreme Court heard the case on income tax and legalized it. And then afterwards they were like, oh, well, we can go away with alcohol now. We've got our money. So it really came down to they taxed you on your income so they could take away your alcohol. That is income tax. And I don't think people know that.
They brought the alcohol back. They kept taxing you on the income.
And then they taxed the shit out of alcohol. So they got you on both fronts now. Yep. I think it's like every time a dollar's traded, it's like 7 cents of the dollar is always just taken off. So if you trade that dollar, like during the day, you trade it like 10 times, your dollar's almost worthless. It's just taxed to shit.
I mean, it's crazy. You spend 25% in federal income tax. You spend 7% in employment tax. You spend, I think the number that I saw last was around 11%. In just various state and local taxes. So if you count your income tax and your property tax and sales tax, it all typically adds up to 11 or 12%. And all of a sudden you're down to, even folks making normal pay are down to about 50% of their, of their paycheck has been taxed already. And that's before you make any money in the stock market or something like that.
And that was agreed upon by both the Party for the Poor and the Party for Fiscal Responsibility. So I don't feel, people have to realize that it takes both of those people to make a tax happen. And, it's the left branch and the right branch of the same damn dying tree. And I don't think people realize that. So when we're talking about, the Libertarian Party, it's almost like a seed growing out of the ground. It's not a branch coming out of a tree. It's a little. It's almost. It's just further. It's not the same. It's just different. And to me, I mean, the reason why I'm so interested, it's like a breath of fresh air. Like finally, Jesus, somebody is like. So I remember someone wrote a tweet. I don't remember who it was. One of the leading. It wasn't Pelosi. It was Schumer. Schumer wrote a tweet, and the Libertarian Party of Texas retweeted it and just fucking slammed them. Just slam dunk.
Texas guys have a great feed.
They just do not care at all, and it's like someone's finally just talking. There's not like yes, we agree with the gentleman from here, blah, 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 and it's just all polite and whatever, and in front of you when they argue, and then they go behind doors and make these slick deals, and it's like, come on, man, I'm tired of that.
Yeah, no, we have some great chapters. Texas is fantastic. They're probably my favorite.
Of those 3 planks we were talking about, you're talking about criminal justice reform, abolishing income tax, and what was the third one? I'm sorry.
Ending war.
So, that's a good. Let's talk about that next. So, our president said before he would leave office, he would reduce to 0 troops in the Middle East. That has since changed to go to 2,500, which to me, I'm not a veteran myself, but speaking with others, they're saying that's just dangerous because now you're just leaving a little amount instead of a forcible amount. So it's either you need to fully leave or leave some force there, because otherwise it's just asking for an ambush.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point I haven't thought of. I mean, in my eyes, less is better. You know what I mean? So as you bring troops out and fewer troops remain, I would say that that's a good thing. It's a good step. I've given him a little credit here and there. Now, what I don't like is what the majority of what he's done is he's taken troops from there and he's moved them to someplace else that's either in the Middle East or nearby. You know what I mean? And so we have troops in 150 countries right now. So if you're taking them from the Middle East and you're putting them in Germany so that you can put them back in the Middle East the first time a headline comes out that, allows you to put them back in the Middle East, then that's not doing anything. If we're actually ending the war, I'm with you. I think you need to get down to zero, because then it's harder to bring the troops back in.
Definitely.
And you also get them off of the tit, so they stop asking for stuff. If there's no troops there, they've got to run their own show. And I think it's time. I mean, we have this. We were talking about this the other night on a different podcast. It's really interesting. In 1991 or whenever Desert Storm was, right? These folks went over and they fought a war. And people my age were actually collecting, baseball cards with the generals on it. They had Desert Storm trading cards. And we all thought this was the coolest thing ever. They're fighting a war. Let's get the general, trading cards. And it, conditioned us to think, okay, this is heroic. It's awesome. Every time we fight a war, it's fun. You know what I mean? And then 2001 comes along. You get 9/11. All of us are now 21. I'm 21 at that time. I went and took the SFAB and almost enlisted, if it wasn't for a few knee surgeries. And a ton of people enlisted. And so those people now, 20 years later, are still at war. We're still at war. And so the difference going forward is going to be those people's kids. They're not going to tell them to go and fight. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
Their kids aren't going to be excited to fight if their dad doesn't have an arm, or their uncle doesn't have an arm anymore, or their uncle's brother died, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And we're going to have a real big problem if we want to keep having troops in 150 countries, and people just don't want to fight for the country anymore because they lied for so long about getting out of these wars.
And it's so hard to keep lying. I mean, how many times... I feel like, didn't the Trump administration try to blame Iran recently for an oil tanker, and everyone was like, shut the fuck up. That did not happen. Like, Germany's like, no. Austria's like, no. All of Americans are like, dude. And then it just went away. Just like that, because everyone was like, shut up. No, it didn't happen. What, the Lusitania again? Get out of here.
I mean, they tried to start a war, right? They assassinated the general, and then talked a big game, like, if Iran attacks us, we're going to go to war with them. Well, Iran attacked us because they assassinated the general, right? So, of course, Iran's going to attack us. And then they did nothing, of course, because they finally realized that it used to be in the 90s and even early 2000s, the military was set up to fight two fronts. That was the entire strategy of the military, was to be able to fight war on two fronts. Right now we've got like 6 going, or 150 going, depending on how you define a front. We have military operations. This is not embassy staff. This is military operations going on in over 135 countries every year. I mean, it's just, we're overstretched. If Iran actually wanted a war, or if China actually wanted a war right now, we'd be completely fucked. We'd have no opportunity.
For a long time, I've always felt that it's just like, we're like a neighborhood patrol, just seeing the cop car. Like, he himself is not going to be able to stop the crime in the neighborhood, but just having the car stroll through the neighborhood is hopefully enough to keep people in line. Well, I think we all know how that goes when shit hits the fan. Eventually, it's not going to work that way, and you're going to have to really reevaluate because I moved here from Minneapolis in June. So I moved here right when the gas stations were burning down, when everything was getting toasty there. And, people were calling the police, and the police were like, what do you want us to do? Like, the whole city's on fire. What do you want us to do? And it was crazy, because everyone that I saw who hated guns suddenly was asked, hey, Jake, you got that extra gun in your house still? Yeah, not for you. I thought you didn't like those. What happened? Now the guy with a gun can't come to your house on a phone's notice. Like, yeah, exactly. So, everyone's going to use a gun. It's just whether or not you call the guy carrying one to come to you or you use your own.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy. And on the war front, do you think that, like with Donald Trump kind of pulling at the leash of NATO, almost pulling out of NATO, do you think Biden's going right back into NATO, or do you think we're going to continue that pullout?
No, I think Biden will probably go back in. And it was one of the few things that Trump did that I supported to a degree, is NATO, the other folks weren't paying what they should in NATO. And I don't agree with, in general, don't agree with kind of worldwide, global
dominance, global governments.
Yeah. It's more trouble than good. There's folks in NATO that aren't so hot, you know what I mean? And they're going to make stupid mistakes, and then we're forced to defend them, which is an entangling alliance that we don't need, right? So
right.
I would have preferred that we just pulled out of NATO rather than cried about how much everybody paid for the last 4 years. But that didn't happen. But I think at the end of the day, Biden's going to go right back in. We're going to brunt the, burden of the cost. Other countries aren't going to pay what they're supposed to. And because Biden's going to want troops in 150 countries, and NATO is just effectively a bribe, right? We're going to pay the majority of this. Therefore, none of you are going to say no when we want to move 10,000 troops into your military base,
So, because NATO is asking for 3% of your GDP to contribute to NATO. And I believe the United States contributes like 12%, something insane. And then I think the second closest is Germany at 1.9%. So, I mean, in dollar terms, it's unbelievable amount of money. It's unbelievable. And NATO was formed in the first place to fight off the Soviet Union after, World War II during the Cold War.
Right.
So we kind of kept NATO around for an invisible enemy that collapsed before I was even born. I mean, I was born in '94, so I mean, we've had troops in the desert longer than I've been alive.
NATO is almost a guarantee for a third world war. People think that it's a guarantee against the third world war, but it's not. What it is somebody, somewhere, will start a war and then demand that NATO, that the Allies help them. And then those people have allies, and it just keeps growing and growing, just like every other world war has. You know what I mean? And so it's almost a guarantee that there will be a third world war, and that's why I hate those entangling alliances, especially big ones. It's different if you say Canada, U.S., Mexico, we're all bordering each other.
Right.
Let's work together to make sure that nobody else puts a military base from a different continent on our land. That would be one thing. I still wouldn't like it, but that would be one thing. But to have it worldwide, no geographic anything, they're just all over the place, and they get voted in and voted out, and they have to pay, but not really. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we'll just let somebody in because we really want an Air Force base there. You know what I mean? Like, that's really a terrible way to decide who to be an ally with and who not to.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we're selling F-35s. I mean, we just sold a ton to Saudi Arabia. I mean, the only reason we're allies with them is because they have oil. And that's it. I mean, Donald Trump himself came out and said it. We've already secured the oil. Why are we even here? That's what he said out loud in front of a reporter. And it's like, you said the thing you weren't supposed to say. You said the quiet part, man.
Saudi Arabia has been assassinating their enemies in the open here for the last couple of years of Donald Trump. They probably were doing it a lot longer than that, but literally the crown prince is involved in the assassinations. And not only that, but it happened in the Turkish embassy, in the embassy in Turkey, who, by the way, is another ally of ours, who has a strong-arm dictator. You know what I mean? I mean, Turkey has their own history of genocide within the last 100 years. I mean, these are terrible allies that we have. We have Turkey, we have Saudi Arabia. Now we have Iraq and Afghanistan because we kind of own them. You know what I mean? So they're allies.
They're like Guam now. They're just our territories over there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just absurd. We're so bad at picking allies. We've done it for years and years. I mean, I'm not terribly good with history, but I remember doing the history on who the Allies were before the different wars. And basically, we were allies with everybody before they turned into bad people, right? We fought the Soviets on the Afghanistan side,
Yep.
right?
We fought the Germans with the Italians. Then the Italians fought the Germans against us.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We make friends for like 23 minutes so we can profit off them. I mean, it's almost like for instance, like with Israel. Israel was formed under the UN partition in 1947. The Arabs said no. Everyone else was like, "Yep, we're doing it anyway," and so we kind of just plopped Israel in the hottest zone on the planet at the time, and so recently Donald Trump, one of the things he's done good is all these different peace agreements between Israel and a lot of different Arab nations. First of all, I think that's going to fall apart in like 2 years after Biden gets in. I really do. I don't think stability in the Middle East is good for him or his cabinet members. But in regards to their refusal to sign the nuclear non-proliferation deal, like what is like the libertarian viewpoint on like nuclear non-proliferation deals and just nuclear
That's
arms?
actually a really good question because I don't know. Obviously, I don't talk for the party, right? So I don't know what the party's viewpoint on it is, other than we adhere to the non-aggression principle, which means you should not aggress upon somebody who does not aggress upon you,
Right.
And now, does that mean you should be able to nuke somebody if they nuke you? Probably. And most of us believe that individuals should have the right to own the same weapons as governments do.
Right.
So I would imagine that people believe that governments have the right to own the same weapons as other governments do, to protect your homeland. So insofar as you have a nuclear weapon to protect the homeland, that's one thing. Now, the non-proliferation agreement, in my understanding, is about how many nukes you have, not whether you have nukes at all, right?
And the enrichment of your uranium as well.
Right. And so, I mean, like, I don't think, from the Russia-U.S. thing, like, I don't think you need 9,000 nukes or 90,000 nukes in your arsenal. You know what I mean? Do we need new countries to have nukes? No, we probably don't, but we should be letting them do what they do. Now you can certainly decide not to send them, warplanes if they're building nukes and stuff like that, or sell them oil. That's your choice. As a government, we shouldn't be doing that anyway. But yeah, I think it's a tough. I guess I have not looked into that as much. I don't know what people's viewpoints are on it, but I would say, in general, we believe in the free market, so government should get in the way of the free market. But we certainly wouldn't, support other countries having nuclear bombs or helping them in any way. And I would imagine that we would stand in the way of it when possible.
So in terms of Israel, I'm sure like the whole world knows they have nukes. They have since like the 50s. Everyone is fully aware of that. There's like rumors of them in South Africa having a test in the oceans, and there was I don't know if you ever heard of the Vela incident. It was our Vela satellites picked up a nuclear test in the South Atlantic, and Jimmy Carter, everyone came out saying that it was a nuclear test, and then like Australian and other nations in Africa came out saying it was a nuclear test, and Americans came out and said, no, it wasn't, we found no evidence, it's done, bye. And they sealed the deal, completely done. It's obvious that, there was an agreement, there's some whistleblowers from former Mossad agents and whatever saying that there was an agreement between South Africa and Israel to test their initial nukes. Why are we covering them for them so hardcore? Is it because we have the receipts, or why are we covering it for them so bad?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. If we are, which I know every libertarian likes to believe every conspiracy theory, that one sounds legit. But I would say if we are, it is probably twofold. One, we kind of dropped them there in the middle of the desert, and America feels like they need to protect any Christian country anywhere, which I think is old world thinking. But if you look around, it has happened over and over again. You know what I mean? So it's a Christian country, kind of, Jewish, Christian. It's got history.
Different parts of it, exactly.
Yeah, and so and people and it's surrounded. Well, let's put it this way: more importantly than what it is what it's surrounded by. Right? Let's call a spade a spade. So Americans don't like Islam, right? It's surrounded by Islam. It also is surrounded by oil, and it's a friendly country and an oil rich. If they weren't there, it is possible that the oil regions would wipe us, away from the oil. Right? We would have no foothold in that region.
It's kind of be like in the 70s where we got the oil shortage.
Right. And so I mean, there's a lot of reasons that I think that people are way too attached. I think at this point, Israel is a strong country with a strong economy and a strong military. There's no reason that we need to babysit Israel anymore at all. I personally think we do more harm than good when we try to do that. And every time we talk, Netanyahu and those folks are plenty strong enough to deal with it. But they're tough.
I mean, the Mossad
that's where I stand on that thing. I think that there's probably the history of why they're there, is one reason. And then probably the location, who they're surrounded by, are the other reasons. None of those are good reasons.
So, a question that I would have, in the eyes of like a libertarian, let's say that, are you familiar with the Stuxnet virus? You ever heard?
No.
So, during the Bush years, while Iran was they had their illicit nuclear program going on in Iran, and Bush didn't like that. So they put in a program between the NSA and 8200, which is like the Mossad's like NSA basically, and they built a worm that overspun their centrifuges and knocked all the centrifuges over, so they would stop, and it basically prolonged their program by 2 years, and it was just a program that our government wrote along with Israel, but that was the first cyber. It almost felt like, because I'm a computer geek, I love cyber stuff, and it almost felt like the nuke went off for the first time for us, because it was the first time that a piece of code maliciously destroyed a nuclear facility, and it's just a piece of code. Obviously it was both Bush and Obama approved it, so I think we all know where the Republicans and Democrats stand on that. But in terms of libertarians, is that more of like that kind of goes against the transparency, or how would that work?
I think that would be an act of aggression against another country.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, if Iran said we're going to bomb you, then you have the ability to go and attack the bomb. But we can defend ourselves, but they can't defend themselves. I think there's a hypocrisy there, and going after them obviously has opened the door. Right now, we know that Iran I shouldn't say no. We're told by the government that Iran and Russia, we're doing hacking all throughout the election and all throughout, the agencies, and trying to hit us with cyber attacks throughout the last 2 years. Those are the only two countries they name, by the way. You know what I mean? Because that's in their best interest to name those two. I'm sure there's 40 other countries that are all trying to do the same thing.
Iran's cyber army is the largest in the world. It's bigger than our NSA. Doesn't mean they're better, but they are bigger.
I mean, I would consider that an act of aggression, and I think that what you'll see is retaliations, which you have seen. So
definitely. Oh, we've definitely. I believe Saudi Aramco, when they had their. Do you remember when they got hit with a computer virus and it shut down? That was Iran, and that was about 3 months after we hit their nuclear facility. They damaged. I think they wiped 10,000 hard drives, and Saudi Aramco was just shipping oil. They were just filling up tankers. Go. I don't know. Go. Just fine. And it was like 7 months of rebuilding their system after that. So yeah, they definitely can hit us too. I don't think it's called Saudi Aramco, but it's fully owned by the Saudi Arabian government. it's just weird how tensions are becoming cyber tensions, and since you don't see bombs exploding or anything, it's almost like they aren't happening, but they are.
Right.
So it's almost warfare is going underground.
The biggest way that people are going to be able to attack different countries without having to sacrifice their own people are going to be through attacks like this and attacks on the economy, which will be driven by vehicles like this. You know what I mean? So, when you can attack and take down the economy, it's going to be pretty darn powerful.
In regards to an economy, let's say, because right now the big thing going on is, it was this pandemic, not saying it was intentionally released by the Chinese, but was it from that lab in Wuhan? Now, people are saying, and this isn't just like, when I say people, it's not like Bond from Twitter. Like, Eric Weinstein, I'm trying to think, Lex Friedman, some other big name scientists are saying this has signs of genetic mutation from a science lab. But if you listen to, the official statement, it's no, it came from a bat. So what this is not like talking for the libertarians. I'm just in regards to this story. What do you think is going on with this?
Yeah, I will tell you that I do not believe in the conspiracy theories. So I've heard them both sides. I've heard that the Chinese lab developed it. I heard that the U.S. government developed it and put it in China. Right? Those conspiracy theories both exist. I've heard that we had it in the U.S. in November. You know what I mean? And then it went to China in December. You know what I mean? All these conspiracy theories exist. Here's at the bottom line is there's almost, I can't think of hardly any reason to help the Chinese cover up the fact that they released this, right? And if Trump actually had any evidence, then he would have thrown it out there inadvertently or advertently when he was doing the whole Chinese virus thing. You know what I mean? If he had the evidence, it'd be out there. And I think that I just don't believe that it's true. And plus, we've had a number of pandemics, throughout the last 10, 20 years
Definitely.
that have come from things like bats. And we know that when you eat bats, this kind of thing happens, and they eat bats. You know what I mean? So it happens.
It was a wet market. There were dogs, cats, bats, squirrels, anything that was alive at one point. They threw it together on a pile, not refrigerated, and were like, "Yeah, what do you want? We can give you this." No, we didn't got it.
And they were in cages, on top of each other, crapping all over each other. I mean, this is not a clean market. You know what I mean? And these are not just in Wuhan. They're all over, not just in China, by the way. They're all over Africa. And, this kind of thing happens. Now, what's different now is that Americans and everybody else in the world visit China frequently. And they visit rural China frequently because now, in Beijing, you make decent money working at a factory.
Yep.
But in Wuhan, you start to, the wages are still low. Just like in New York City, you make decent money, but in Fayetteville, Arkansas, the wages are low. You know what I mean? It's the same thing inside of China. And so what's happened is manufacturing has pushed out to these rural areas so that people like me are going to places like that and visiting plants. And what do they want us to do? They want us to go and eat the local food. I mean, I ate brains in Mexico. I don't know what kind of brains they were. Nobody told me. It was just funny. You know what I mean? And so I ate street food in Mexico. I ate all this stuff. And we're in rural Mexico out on the street. I don't know what I'm eating. They do that same thing when they take folks to China. And so, do I believe that it could have been from a normal bat? Yes. I actually, I'm like 99.9% sure that it came from some dumbass eating bat because he thought it was funny. You know what I mean? And then it spread like crazy.
I'm totally on board with you. The people are saying that it has signs of genetic mutation. A lot of stuff these days has signs of genetic mutation because
every virus mutates.
Food is GMO intentionally. Almost everything is mutated. So, and I'm not a scientist. I'm not coming out here saying like, "Oh, I know the answer." I don't. I'm just saying it wouldn't be far-fetched that somebody eating a bat would get a disgusting coronavirus. I mean, this is COVID-19. This isn't like the only coronavirus on the market. There's like 28 of them out there. You know, this is just like a mutation of the coronavirus that we haven't had yet, so it fucking went nuts. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't think it's too far-fetched to think a squirrel and a bat crossed paths and then some dude ate it and shit funny and now he's got a virus. Yeah, no, I definitely don't think that's too far.
And you know what? If I'm proven wrong, then I'm proven wrong down the road. But I just, there's just so many. We've had so many people looking at this. It just feels like we would have figured it out by now, and there's no reason for us to hide Chinese involvement. If anything, we would be highlighting it.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, Trump couldn't even keep our brand new Spy 1 satellite a secret. He fucking tweeted a picture out, got like day 2. Here it is. Here's nuclears. We found it. And it's like, dude, we just launched that. Why would you? We just set that up. That was, can't keep classified information secret, which is kind of why like the whole QAnon conspiracy was so funny to me. It's like, this guy can't keep shit secret. What are you talking about? I mean, like, senators don't tell him information from, like, security meetings because he can't shut up.
Even the FBI and the CIA, right? Retired and said, yeah, we don't tell him anything that we don't want to end up on Twitter because...
He can't shut up. He cannot be quiet. I mean, if you follow his Twitter... It's amazing he gets anything done. It's like every hour he's got like 3 new tweets up. Like, dude, what do you do? Aren't you the president? Aren't there like papers to sign and shit? Like, come on, man. No, it would have been really nice to see. It's gonna be nice because the day is gonna come when a third party candidate, well, either the country collapses first or a third party candidate gets in there, and it'll be nice to see a third party candidate be like, hold up, we're not doing that anymore, where we just go to war and shit. Because thinking back to like World War I, World War II, you had to have a damn good reason for us to get into Europe, and now It's like we're expected to be in Europe.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I mean, how many years did we not go? You know what I mean? And we didn't go until we were attacked here at home.
Right.
In World War II. And so how many years did we not go and not get involved? And now it's like, oh my God, this little tiny city was rampaged, not by a military or anything like that, but just by this roving gang. So now we need to send 2,000 troops in and kill anybody who's associated with this gang or anybody who looks like or thinks like this gang, but's not associated with them.
Right, and they're just... And, when we go over there, like, Cat Williams, he's one of my favorite comedians. I've only met him a couple times, but he's fucking hilarious because all of his jokes are straight up political every single time. And he's like, we aren't in Iraq. He's like, tell me what the Iraqi uniform looks like. Go ahead, I'll wait. He's like, we aren't killing them. We aren't killing soldiers, but we're killing them, dude. We just call them insurgents to feel better. It's so fucking true. They're just people. Because they're just wearing clothes and shit. There was a video that WikiLeaks let out where it was like SEALs came across like a farmer and just shot him in the head for no reason. And they like covered it up and they called him like an insurgent. And it's like, he was a fucking farmer. What are you talking about? Yeah, he had a gun because he lives in Afghanistan. Like, why can't he have a gun? Look what you guys are doing. You guys have guns. Oh, it's crazy to me. Anyway, to get off politics, what's it like to be? You have children, right? You're a father of 4. What's that like?
Yeah, I got 4 kids. We had them pretty fast. It was 4 in about 6 years, so it's about 1.5 years in between each of them. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I would say the first one obviously was a mistake, like they usually are, and then we were like, hey, let's just keep going and let's get the papers done. And I had a mentor in business, and he always told me, no matter how many kids you have, if you had 1 more. And so I only wanted 2, so I said, okay, I'm going to have twice as many as I want. That way I won't feel like I need anymore. And I think I accomplished the goal, so I don't think I'm ever going to say I wish I had 5.
You went into it with a plan. That's the difference. You knew coming out what you wanted. I only want 2, so I'm going to have 4 and feel terrible about it. And that way I'm straight into dad mode right off the bat.
Yeah, at first I told my wife, I'm like, you can have as many as you want, but only 2 are going to college. and then when we got to 4, I was like, nope, I'm going to get snipped. It's done. I'm calling it.
Most of my friends are in their 30s and 40s. I'm 26, but I feel like I'm such an old soul. I just don't really get along with people my age very well. And all of my friends have had kids, and they like all gotten snipped already. And to me, like watching them suffer after I laughed so hard, and I shouldn't have, but like they're on the couch with like an ice pack on their nuts, and they're just like, "Oh, honey, I need chocolate milk. And they're just like asking for the most ridiculous shit just to try to make them feel better.
Yeah, I did not get that treatment because my wife wanted it, so she was pissed at me. I think she left me at that clinic for like 4 hours before she came and picked me up. I was in there with a whole bunch of geriatric people watching soap operas, waiting for her to come back, and then I got no sympathy that weekend. I think I was doing yard work and taking stuff up the stairs. And it's like,
didn't it hurt? Like, didn't you have like pain in your gut?
Oh yeah, it hurts.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm laughing at you.
Everyone will tell you that first day after you feel fine, and so you do more than you should, and it hurts like crazy, and that happened to me too. So, but I did it because I wasn't getting any sympathy, so I had stuff to do.
I don't have any kids myself. I'm from a family. There's 8 siblings in my family, and so yeah, we're used to quite the bunch of kids getting moved around and stuff. My older brother is 27, 28 now. He's 27. Yeah, he's probably 27. And then my youngest sister is 7. So it's like there's quite a difference in age there too. Yeah.
We wanted to keep everyone close. We moved around a lot too in our state together, and so yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then we had one child who had special needs, so that also made us kind of stop early and stick at 4. So a lot of work goes into that.
Is it all boys?
We got they're all pretty close. Especially now with COVID, we'll see how this affects kids, right?
Definitely.
Having them stay home for so long. But I mean, the upside is the brothers are all super close, probably way closer than they would have been because they're spending so much time together.
Yeah.
The downside is they don't have as much, outreach to other children. So we'll see how that all plays out long term.
I just hope that this doesn't, like, when kids finally start getting back together, everyone doesn't just get like sick as shit from random everyday things now, because everyone's just been zoned off for so long that no one has anyone's germs for anything, like even the common cold is going to be like easy to catch now.
Well, and it's so weird. I just think the mentality of everybody is so weird. I mean, I remember last year there probably wasn't a week that went by that I wasn't sick because my kids were in school.
Right.
And that's what happens.
Right.
Just sick all the time.
Oh,
they bring home so much crap, and the parents are just sick nonstop.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
With it.
And so when the kids go back to school and people start getting sick, like, is everyone going to freak out? Like, are we going to have to keep them home anyway? How long is it going to be until people can act normal and be like, okay, it's just crud?
It's just because just being a parent is always a punishment. So even when they're gone, you have to be sick to remember them. Like, yep,
exactly.
That's right. The runny nose. I have to keep you on you're at school, and I'm still got you here, don't I? Well, Todd, it was awesome talking to you today. People can follow you on Twitter, Instagram, anywhere else, Facebook?
Yeah, I got Facebook on there. I think it's still Todd Hagopian for Corporation Commission, Oklahoma Corporation Commission, and then at Todd Hagopian on Facebook. At Todd Hagopian on Twitter. Chief Chats on Twitter. Pretty much just type in Todd Hagopian into Google, and you'll find me where you find me.
Awesome. Well, listening to Chief Chats, it's been great talking to you, Todd. Thanks so much for thanks so much for coming on. It's been great having you. Thanks, man. I'll see you later. Alrighty. That was a great conversation I just had there with him. If anyone is interested in coming on the show, please be an interesting person like we had today and like we've had in the past. I do have emails from all sorts of people. If you're just sweeping floors and stuff, it's cool. I get your hustle, but we got to talk about stuff that everyone can associate with. The show has moved. My pay-per-view show has moved to December 30th, and that is available on my website, jakeradercomedy.com. Go today, buy your tickets, because if you don't and you ask me after the show how the show went, I'll know you didn't buy tickets and you didn't watch. So buy the damn tickets. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.